Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC. This was not the type of show that we had in mind. When me and Barry did the preview on Saturday, I was sat here going, we're going to be talking about loads of goals. We're going to talk about a few positive turns. We're going to have a few, let alone goals. I would have taken shots yesterday, to be fair, because one shot on target, 3 shots in the whole game. That was quite possibly one of the worst performances we have seen from this United shirt. I'm well aware there's going to be a lot of comments tonight and everything else, so I'll make sure I try and get through all of those as we go through. We've got a lot of opinions and a lot of things to talk about, I'm sure. As we get through all of this, there's obviously a lot of frustration growing around the fan base at the moment online, and it was felt in the stadium as well, which is something we'll talk about as well. I'm not going to focus too much on the lineup and things. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm literally just going to ask you all from the first half point of view, because I genuinely, apart from the Chelsea 6-0, I genuinely don't remember a first half as poor as we saw yesterday, or last night against Aston Villa. So, Barry, I will come to you first. And I don't even know what the question is. As I've kind of just hopped on here. As I've just said to these guys back, I've been frustrating myself all day. I'm kind of winding myself up again. But, what was it for you, Barry, that first half? You can start from wherever you want with that, really, in terms of just... we didn't have a single shot on target that first half. I think we only had 2 shots in that first half, or 1. And Villa had, I think, 62% of the ball or something like that in that first half. So we really didn't get any control of the game. What was it for you that just went so wrong? Because we were all so confident going into this one. Villa haven't won a game yet in the WSL.
As I said to you, it'll be 6-0. And it was one of those days where you kind of wish that you'd written your predictions into the predictions league, because I could have claimed that was a 0. You can't do that when you've typed it in. Listen, let's first of all, before we kick off, before we get ourselves into this rabbit hole that we know we're going to get into, it's really important that we all take care of ourselves, that we are sat here looking after our mental health. I've got myself set up with a little bit of fizz, just what you need. I've got lime and mint, if you please. Could you imagine this coming from Robinson's? Who knew that was going to happen? And for the moment, I have 2 little salted caramel Lindors ready for when I feel that the temperature rising. So I've got a little bit of bliss. And if it gets worse, I've got more in the cupboard also. So it's important that we take a moment to look after ourselves. And I just want us all to make sure, especially you 3 there as well, make sure you've got a little something that you can cheer yourself back up with, because this is going to be, I think, possibly the most depressing 45 minutes or so that we're going to get through, because that was, without question, one of the worst football matches I've ever watched in my life. Now, I'm 42 years old, so that batters a lot of you into submission there. And I've got a massive catalogue to go back through. It was atrocious. It's barely no shots on target, no forward-thinking play. I was left spending most of my time watching the match thinking to myself, why are you doing this? What have you done? What's the purpose? What are they supposed to be doing? Where's the ball supposed to be played to? Where are the people supposed to be? I can't work out what it is that Marc Skinner is trying to do. And I am not a person who advocates for managers to be removed from their job, but I really, really struggled with yesterday's performance. And I'm sure you've got loads of questions that are going to come through, so I won't go into his post-match conversations just yet. But there was just devoid of ideas. There was nothing. And that is the saddest thing in the world to be coming on and saying, because I don't feel like it's effort. I don't feel it was that the players weren't able to play. It's that we had 45 minutes of getting battered by the team at the bottom of the league. Like, we're at home. Like, forget this is Manchester United. Forget this. We are at home, and we were making them look like they were prime Barcelona. Jordan Nobbs looked like Bonmati. What? Like, how is this occurring? Like, we were just lucky that they had, Leslie Russo up front, because, let's be honest, it could have been worse. And then when Fallon, God bless her, I love Fallon, and she's kept a superb clean sheet. But 2 minutes in, when she's got no one to pass the ball to, So she's had to take that touch, and then she ends up sliding the ball away, and you're just like, what the world is going on? She did well not to concede there. She really did. But genuinely, that was atrocious. And you know, I think that was. I'm going to leave it there for now. I might go to one of my little pots of joy because I can feel it already starting to creep up. But you wanted a simple one. So what was it for me? Just zero ideas. The tactical side of it just wasn't there. And there was no reaction. You don't wait 45 minutes whilst you're getting spanked by the side at the bottom of the league and then still not make a change and do the exact same thing in the second half. No substitutes till like the 75th minute. Like, what was he waiting for? What was he waiting for? Was he waiting for the second coming? Was he expecting to see the four horsemen of the apocalypse come down? Was he expecting that to happen during the match? Absolutely crazy. Terrible.
I think, yeah, you've summed it up pretty well. There's definitely a lot of, as you mentioned now, I've got a few questions. The midfield's a big talking point as well. I want to come back to the midfield as a separate point. Marc Skinner's post-match comments, as you've mentioned, that's a whole section on its own. We're going to talk about that as well, because I know that is a big talking point and everything else. And we're going to talk a little bit about how isolated turned it as well. So these are all separate talking points we are going to dive into in more specifics. But I want to go around the panel and just get your thoughts, Charlie, next on this, and Matt just following after Charlie in this one. Just, I mean... Yeah, just your initial thoughts, and again, like that first half. I mean, what did you see? How did you see it from your point of
view? I feel like a lot of people agreed with this. When I saw the lineup, I actually thought, oh, this might be what we were hoping for. A couple of actual wingers who could play the ball into probably the best 18-yard box forward in the WSL last season. Playing Grace Clinton as more of an 8, so she can get on the ball a lot more, and having Jade Riviere back in the side. I thought, oh, here we go. And it's almost like he thought, I'm going to play wingers, and they're going to think that we're going to play some balls into the box to this brilliant 6-yard box, 18-yard box striker. But actually, we're not. We're just going to play them all really narrow. And then when the ball does go out wide, 5 players at a time are all going to run into the exact same space, like no one knows where anyone's going or what anyone should be doing. And on top of that, the one weakness of our goalkeeper is she doesn't like the ball to feet under pressure. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure every time we have possession of the ball, we're going to pass it to her 3 or 4 times under pressure. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to make it worse by having the centre-backs, when they receive the ball, just never look forward. Just always look back. So it doesn't matter if the midfielders and the forwards are making runs. We won't see them. That's what it feels like watching it. That's what made it more annoying, is because I thought we were playing a lineup where we're going to be playing players in their right position, and we would have a better level of output. But it was absolutely dreadful. 1 shot on goal, abysmal. 41% possession at home against bottom of the table. And then he comes out again and he says, I'll just show them some tapes. I'll show them some tapes of things that they did that I don't want them to do. It's like that's what he does. He doesn't tell them what to do. He waits until after the game and goes, oh, here's 2 or 3 more things I don't want you to be doing. Please don't do those things. Another two other things that epitomised it was it's the goalkeeping coach, which is I've no issue with generally. I'm glad someone is giving some information from the sideline, but it's the goalkeeping coach. The other first team coaches don't get up at any point to do anything from what I can see or gather. So I'm not one of these people who says get Skinner out and give it to one of the other first team coaches. Nonsense for me, as far as I'm concerned. And the second thing, which Matt probably heard me talking about for 60 minutes, was when Fallon had the ball for a goal kick and everyone saw her motion to where she wanted the players to go for this goal kick. No one moved. They all just literally stayed where they were. And I thought, that's it. They don't know what they're doing. But how they're playing, and I've said this before, God love Mourinho, at least he had character, okay? He had character at least. When it's like the fullbacks or centre-backs get the ball and they get near the halfway line and then they stop and they just pass backwards. That's been coached into them. Clearly that's been coached into them, because these are the same players, a lot of the same players, particularly that back line, who were the back line when we scored a heck of a lot of goals the last 2 seasons, most of them, building up play from the back. Like Mayer's balls out from the back are non-existent. not ones that have any purpose to them. It's just the whole thing is bizarre. And he's actually been there 4 seasons now, 4 seasons. And it doesn't matter if you're making signings, your style of play should be apparent. And sometimes you can go all style, no substance. There's no style and there's no substance at all. And what I expect is, if for some reason they keep him on, he'll get 3 or 4 new signings next summer and go, oh, new players. They're not ready. We're going to have to do this all over again, guys. So we're never going to get past. Can you imagine industry? Can you imagine schools and banks and whatever else it is, whatever anyone's job is, every time someone new was employed, they went, oh, we can't work to the best of our ability. We're just going to have to be not very good. It's just bizarre. Absolute nonsense.
Important question, Charlie.
Yeah.
You said the defenders were looking back, not forwards. Was it in anger?
At some points, Barry.
Oh, it can't be. You're told not to. Don't look back in anger. It's very simple.
But I think at times it was. It was really frustrating, and you could feel it in the crowd. I was incandescent. Dogs agree. See, I said I'd say something profound, and there they go. Never let me down. I was incandescent. I just couldn't contain it, and my children were there, and I still couldn't contain it. Furious. And I think Emily said, who would you get in? Who's available? Literally don't care. That's where we're at. Anyone at this point, me. Get me in. Anyone will do.
I'm throwing Matt's name forward, to be fair. Matt's on a good little record, I hear, at the moment. So
it's all right, yeah. 6 out of 7. Wins, not draws as well. Don't count the draws.
I mean, Matt, what did you make of it? Charlie's just made quite a few points there we're going to come back to. But for yourself, I mean, was it a surprise? I mean, some fans would say, and I agree with them, that we've played like this for pretty much every game this season. It's just we've scored a couple to maybe cover that up a little bit.
I don't even know if we have scored enough, though. That's the thing. I think the thing is, for me, in 6 years of going home and away and abroad, I've never once wanted to not be there until yesterday. I think the frustration, just the whole game, it was like they held up the board for 10 minutes and I was thinking, no, forget the 10 minutes. We'll just cut it short. Like, I've never wanted to leave a game quick. Never wanted to get out of there as quick as I did. Never wanted to not be there until yesterday. It was that bad. I don't know where you start with it. I really don't. I think I talked yesterday. I tweeted out, Turland gets no service, doesn't score goals because she's got no help. Midfield's either bypassed or missing. There's no ideas on the ball. There's no ideas off the ball. There's no movement. There's no willingness to counter-attack. There's no physicalness. There's no, we're hard to play against. We just sit in a mid-block with the ball. And like Charlie said before, go sideways, backwards, left and right. Or we sit in a low block without the ball and we invite teams onto us and then rely on Fallon to bail us out the shit. I don't know. It's definitely coached. 100%. Sorry, Barry. 100% it's coached because, I've been there. I've done that. I've seen other teams do it. You set up with what you want from your team. You don't show them a DVD. You play how you want to play. You coach how you want to play and everything else in between. And I just think, bottom of the league, we're at home. I mean, come on, it's Villa. They're not great, are they? And we've just sat back and, yeah, like I think somebody said before, was it one shot? Was it you, Connor, at the start? 1 shot on target and 3 ballooned over or wide. If it was like, it's not even an excuse. If it was a better team, we shouldn't be playing like that. It was just absolutely dreadful. And I just, yeah, I'm losing words now because I just think the Arsenal performance was dreadful. Could it get any worse? Not in my mind, but then it did. And it's going to be, I know you're going to dissect the press conference, which I'll get into later, but it's going to be a difficult one. We're going to Leicester and we've then got Chelsea coming up. And if we go to Chelsea and play like that, we're going to get smashed about 8-0. So it's kind of like, what do we want out of the season? We can't blame a new team. We're supposed to be aiming for the top 3 and we're not going to get anywhere near based on how we are at the minute. Like what are we trying to achieve currently? Because, the season's brand new. And we seem to be at panic stations and out of ideas already.
I think that's the thing for me. What you just said there about not wanting to be in the ground, that's genuinely the same as me. And I was really happy yesterday because I had a couple of my kind of like match going friends with me as well from last season as well. That their first game back and everything else, and I was genuinely stood there just like I was just getting so angry. Like you said, Charlie, about not being able to hold in. That was the same as me. I was getting so annoyed because it was like, I don't like, what are we watching? I don't understand. For me, I always try and watch the game and think, right, okay, I'm going to try and work out what they're trying to do. Even if it's not working, what are we actually, what's the goal here? What are we trying to do? I genuinely could not tell you what we were trying to do. Because as you mentioned, the midfield, which I want to come on to in a second, was being bypassed and all of that kind of thing. But everything about the game for me was just horrendous. And obviously the atmosphere is something else I want to come back to as well, because for me that completely turned yesterday into something I've not seen at LSV for a long time, where it felt like the whole crowd had turned. I just noticed this comment. I appreciate that, Leash. But yes, I'm glad that was a bit of a highlight for you before the rain. Chucking it down with rain though, wasn't it, outside the rain, for those of you that were stood outside the front before the game. But yeah, we were so confident before the game as well, weren't we? Even at half time, I met a couple of people. I was like, it's fine, and we're still going to win. We can't be as bad as that first half. Oh my life, was I in for a shock for the second half.
It was also weird things. So like, the ball would be played forwards, and then Muzzy Bizzett or Mallard or whoever it was would play the overlap or the run out wide, and the player with the ball. And I think our perspective was pretty good, Matt, wasn't it, from where we were, when particularly in attacking our end. You would see the midfielder look up, see the run, and the Villa fullback hadn't gone with them, so the space was there, and Turlin's on a trotters trying to get into the box because she sees that player make the run, but then they don't play the ball, they just cut back inside and pass it backwards. And I think, well, if the players are making those runs and the Villa defenders do go with them, then that creates space in the middle, but the Villa players just knew that we weren't going to make those passes, so it was really, really easy for them. It was just bizarre. And then occasionally we'd play some sort of desperate ball forward under the illusion that Turlin was gonna beat everyone for pace and get it, and that seems to be our only tactic. We sit with the ball, and then the opposition know we're going to cough it up because we're just going to try and send it 40 yards and hope Turlin gets it. If that's your strategy to building an attack, is just lumping it forward, we've got the wrong striker for that. You go all in for someone rapid, a Stina Blacksenius, or someone that's going to beat someone for pace when they're 3 or 4 yards behind, when the defender's got a head start. We haven't got that. We've got a player who we saw against Spurs. If you put the ball into the box, she will score. She did that the 2 times against Spurs. But we're not doing that at all. We're just expecting her to run around like a headless chicken, it seems to be, on her own when Villa have got the ball. And also, like, again, it was like a weird thing to watch tactically. So we weren't properly pressing the ball. So the Villa keeper had the ball for ages. So we were then sitting back in like a 4-4-2, it looked like. But then D'Angelo was just pinging the ball 40 yards straight to a Villa player under no pressure, not being marked. Like, if you're not pressing, surely what you're trying to do is you're trying to prevent those balls from happening. But we weren't doing that either. It's all coached. It all feels like it's coached. And I genuinely believe, I think another fellow in front of us who was with Matt, I turned to him and I said, I feel like this is genuinely the most talented squad we've ever had, like ever. But we're playing the worst football we've ever played. And I'm not saying we should be going and battering everyone 6 or 7-0, because that's not feasible. That's ridiculous. But you expect a level of performance, surely. And we're not getting that. And the setup is dreadful. For Mia Zawa and Emma Watson not to get on that pitch yesterday, I think is criminal. When we can't get a foot on the ball in the middle of the park, no one's creating anything, and those two don't step foot on the pitch, is just balmy for me. I don't understand it.
It's awkward, isn't it? When you get to a point where the minute silence is the most interesting part of the evening, that there's a problem to be had.
What you've just said to kind of epitomise it for me. You've got attacking players on the bench there, and I understand the Mannion change. Jade looked like she went off with cramp anyway, so I think I understood that one. But again, you're talking. I mean, Awujo and Williams came on in the 78th minute, and I said to Ema at the time, and I will bring in the midfield on this one. What are they looking at in that midfield and thinking, yeah, this is working. This is how we want to play. Because Clinton, Toon, and Janssen, for me, were having shockers because one, they couldn't get on the ball. Two, Clinton was just being double and triple marked at times because every time any time she got anywhere near the ball, 3 Villa players were on her straight away. And Janssen, for me, as I've said since the very first game of the season, just for me cannot play in that defensive midfield role because she just doesn't have the mobility for me to play in that, certainly on her own. Because when you're at centre back, I said this to a lot of people yesterday, when you're at centre back, the whole game is in front of you. You can read the game from the back. When you're in defensive midfield, you've got players to the left, to the right of you, behind you, in front of you. You've got to read the game a lot better from there. I don't think that's her. So she's really struggling in that position as well. So I don't understand what they're looking at and going, yeah, this is working.
Again,
this is.
It comes down to trust. And he's clearly not trusting a lot of these players. Like, that game was built for a Hayley Ladd. Somebody who can get in there, break the play up, all of those sorts. And he's not even entering her head. I'm sorry, not entering his head that she would be an option. Because, well, I don't even know what because. I'd love to know what he wants to say this time about why it is that Hayley Ladd wasn't even in contention to get some minutes on this one when we were getting absolutely smashed. It's mental. And, you know, Simi is a great young player. You know, she's got a bright future ahead of her. But even if you're going to make that, you've got to make it earlier. Why are we leaving it until 75, 78 minutes? Yes, they had 20 odd minutes in the end because of that whole, 10 minutes added on at the end. But it wasn't enough. It was too late. There was just no change. It was stubborn and pathetic. Like, honestly, it's just, if ever there was an advert for how not to manage it yet again, this was it. Like, this was it. You are playing against the team at the bottom of the league and nothing. You get to half-time having not had a shot on target. It takes you till the 72nd minute to get one. I think it was something like, it was gone an hour before we even got a first corner. Like, at what point are you going to sit there and go, do you know what? Maybe the attack's just not working. Maybe we need to do a little change here. But instead, you're just relying on these people. There's going to be a moment of brilliance. Like, Ella Toon is just going to step up, having had nothing to do, really. And she's just going to whip in a goal from 25 yards out, and that's going to settle us. And that's not how you can do it. You can't play football hoping that somebody is going to step up with a little bit of magic, and that's going to settle your nerves. It's not good enough. The man management has got to change. And I said this the other day, but it has got to, because if he continues doing what he's doing, he is not going to be here by the end of the year. I said this weeks ago. He is actively, right now, he's a little bit like World War II, one of the little Japanese fighter pilots, isn't he? Because he just seems to be flying to his doom. And nobody seems to be able to stop him. And it's absolutely mad. Like, just wake up.
Yeah, well, I'd go one further, but you said this at the last game of last season, that if we started like this, that you wouldn't see the end of the year out. And I agree. I think when you're looking at, I want to come back to that actually as a separate point as to where this result and performance leaves us. But you're right with Hayley Ladd. I'm looking at it going, as I said a second ago, I don't know what he's watching that to not change it, but to not even get on the pitch at all for Hayley Ladd, I think is just baffling in itself when the midfield is getting completely overrun. I mean, Matt, you spoke briefly about the midfield a second ago. Is that the kind of change you would have liked to have seen? I mean, what is going wrong with this midfield? Because as I said, for me, this has been happening since the very first game of the season against West Ham at Old Trafford. Spurs in the first half battered us. Then we got 2 goals just before half-time. Flip that around. Arsenal's the same. Everton, we scraped a 1-0 away there and looked a bit shaky in that one as well. We've not really been convincing in any game this season, particularly from midfield.
Yeah, I think if you look at it, obviously last year we had a couple of players holding. This year we seem to have sacrificed that, or so it appears. That's what he wants to do, which is fine. But then you've got to have drilled that and coached that. And for me, if I link it to personally what I've done when I've been coaching teams, is you tell your midfield what you want, how you want to play, where to move on and off the ball, what your patterns are, your style of play, what you want. And I think, you've touched on it there with Janssen, who looks out of sorts. I think for me, I'd like to see her at the back next to Maya, if we're not doing anybody holding. I think then you talked about Clinton being double marked. So then that's on the rest of the players, right? She's been double marked. How do we then find that space? Because clearly 2 players marking one of ours means there's gaps somewhere. And I know Charlie touched on it before about, you know, there was players wide in space, and it just didn't happen. And you've got to see that as a midfielder, but also as a coach. And that's got to come from both, right? Okay, we've taken Jordan Nobbs and Lucy Stanley. They're going doubling up on Clinton. Right, where's the space? And we just didn't utilise it. And it's got to come from everyone, players and staff, but more so on the staff, because at the end of the day, he's setting that team up. He's saying, this is what I want. This is the game plan. This is what we're going to do. And if in a game it's not working, you change it. And he's so passive, it's unbelievable. And I think yesterday he mentioned, and I know I'm jumping a bit early with his interview, but he said the first half I was unhappy. It was dreadful. That's fine if he'd have left it there, but he carried on. Now, what he didn't do was, if it was that bad, why didn't you change it at half time? Why then keep it exactly the same and then second half say, second half was a bit better when it wasn't? Like, if it's so bad and you're so unhappy with the first half, at half time, you address it and you change whether your style of play, whether it's your players, and you adapt and you have a plan B. And you might give it 10, 15 minutes, and then you might need to change it again, and that's absolutely fine. But to do nothing is absolutely criminal. To be overrun in midfield, there was so many gaps, there was so many bad decisions, there was so many hoof balls wide. It was just, yeah, painful. I had a sore neck watching that, even from the terrace, from the aerial view. I just think, like, if your players know their role on the ball and off the ball, it makes life easier. But I just think that midfield has stayed the same for the last few games, which is fine if you're trying to, you know, gel players together. That's cool. But it's the fact that nobody has a clue what's going on. Nobody's expecting the pass. Nobody's demanding the pass. Nobody's thinking, right, well, this is what he wants us to do, probably because they don't know. And if you don't know yourself as a coach, that's where there's issues, as we've seen these past, 3, 4, 5, 6 games?
You mentioned it. I'll quickly bring that up, actually, and while you say, because we tweeted part of this quote earlier, what you just mentioned there. I'm not going to come on to the new team, but I want to come to that as a separate point. But on the second half in particular, he said, we need to learn to be better. I'm happy with this team in the second half. They spoke to each other at half time. It wasn't good enough from them. They understand that, and as a collective, we'll move forward. I mean, Charlie, were we better in the second? Because I can't lie. When I heard him say that, I was like, better in the second half? Like, well, marginally, yeah, but it wasn't hard to do because we didn't have a shot on target at all. We had one, so yeah, I guess that is technically better. But I mean, happy with the second half. And again, for me, the key part of that quote is it wasn't good enough from them. Again, it's almost like it wasn't me. I set us up right. Those players got that wrong. Is that?
He talks.
I don't know.
We've talked about this before. He just talks like he's a really rubbish, like, guest speaker that you've got in at a school with no budget, where he just says, "Oh, was it? We move forward as a collective. All right. What does that look? What does that look like? How many more times are you going to say that that's what we're going to do?" I'm not surprised that there was no accountability for him or his coaching staff, because there literally never has been, unless we're playing really well, and then it's brilliant. I don't think we're any better. I think you could probably argue that when Rachel Williams came on, there was a little bit of urgency, but just because that's in Rachel Williams' nature, I think, to be a little bit more bullish. But no, I don't think we were better. I think we had a couple of players who tried to force the issue a bit. And in which case I'd be asking why, if they don't start next game, why they're not starting, because that's something that they did that no one else bothered with. But no, I don't think we were any better. I thought we were more annoying because it felt like we were just happy to be unbeaten. I feel like we could go 22 games unbeaten and them all be draws and finish on 22 points, and you go, well, guys, unbeaten, like it's some sort of massive achievement. I just think he talks nonsense. I think it's a nonsense. I don't even know if he believes what he says. Probably that's what they were discussing in their little coaching huddle. It's not us, guys. We've done a great job. Let's pat each other on the back. It's those players that haven't done what they're meant to have done. Rubbish. I've had enough.
Yeah,
I've already picked up on that.
yes, I'm going to come back and ask you specifically on that in just a second. But I mean, Barry, do you think we were better in the second half? Because I can't lie, I don't think. I think Jace was a good addition actually to the second half, and Williams, we know what we're going to get from Williams. She runs about, barges into people, really puts the shift in. But I don't think we were amazingly better, in the second half compared to the first.
Yeah. Well, hello. The answer to your question, you said 7:45. You're 12 minutes early. The answer to your question is one word, and that word is statistically. And that's it. Statistically, we were better in the second half than we were in the first half. The sad thing is those statistics don't bear out a decent performance in either half. So that's the only way in which you can look at it. If you're just looking at the stats, yeah, we hadn't had a shot on target. We did get a shot on target. We'd hardly had any shots. We had a few more. We hadn't had a corner. We did in the second half. So, yeah, technically. But, listen, I do... anyone who watches this show will know that I attempt to be uber fair and potentially stick up for people more than I probably should on occasion. And we do have to be fair. At the end of the day, the manager's job is to manage, and it is their job to set the team up and set them out how they want them to play. But once they cross the white line, it is up to the players to perform. Absolutely. And I don't think we can sit here and absolve the players entirely from the game because they are the ones ultimately that are out there performing. The difference is, we've had this argument over on the men's channel as well. The difference I feel is that you're not looking at these girls and going, there's no effort. They're not trying. It's just blatantly obvious that A, they don't really know what it is that's supposed to be going on. B, the setup isn't right. And that C, there has got to be something else going on. You cannot manage a team consistently freezing people out and changing things around in the way that he is and assume that these players are not going to sit there and get a complex. Like, let's put it another way, right? I like the analogies. We'll bring it into this. This would be the equivalent of you doing the next 10 Monday night shows but not asking me to come on. But not coming to me and saying, Barry, I think you need to take a little break. We've got some younger talent coming through. People have had enough of being blinded by the light shining off on your head, So ultimately, we're going to have to give it a bit of time. There's none of that. There's no, I want to try this partnership and see how it works. It'll be really interesting to see how Charlie and Matt get on, without you spoiling their funk, all of that sort of stuff. And I get that. But this would be the equivalent. It's what he's doing. And I'm not for 1 minute trying to suggest that I'm a superstar footballer who, is undroppable from WFC. But what I'm getting at is that in my head, I'm going to be thinking, well, why did he do that? Because if there's no conversation to it, and if there's no real reason, when you're looking at a match like that and you're going, I'm not being funny, I just watched that, and the three of them were like they were at a funeral. What they really needed was me to come in and throw in a couple of jokes so that everybody was a bit more ha 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 and wasn't leaving the show feeling like they wanted to throw their laptop down the nearest river they could find. That's not what we want. And it's the same in football. You can't have players. It's all about communication. It's just a strange way to ask for 10 weeks off. You're not right. I'd need more than that. But that's what it is for me. So I'm not entirely against the fact that he wants to sit there and say the players need to take some responsibility. They absolutely do. But that does not absolve him and the coaching staff of their responsibility to make sure the players are set up. And I've been involved in plenty of dressing rooms where the gaffer will turn around at the end and go, that was my fault. I shouldn't have done this. I made a poor decision. I shouldn't have made that substitution. Shouldn't have done that. But to just come on, and as people have alluded to in the chat already, it's all right, we'll go away, we'll look at the video, we'll do this, we know what we need to do, and we'll fix it for the next game, and we'll make sure that this first half is a memory that seemed long ago. And it's like it already feels long ago because that 55-minute second half felt like the entirety of my teens. It's just long. And he has got to put himself together now. It can't just be them and us. It's we. We need to do better. And if he starts using that language, it's acceptable to be at least trying to say that. But to keep giving it them, this is not a group of players that are not working hard. This is not a group of players that don't want to be better. This is a group of players that has got someone who's won a WSL with Arsenal in it. This is a group of players that have got Olympic medalists. This is a group of players that's got the best bloody striker from the league last year. The best, and this is how good at the moment our manager is. She's the best striker in the league. Don't give her the ball. Don't give her the ball. Whatever you do not give that striker the ball. She might score. What the chuff? Who does that? Who goes, what's the best way that we can play football that ensures you don't touch the ball?
And
I'm going to have to go and get more of these now.
No, and that's the thing, right? And I think I said after the game that, you know, that there's so many phases of play where you look at the players that are on the board, whoever it is at the time, and you can tell there's that moment of hesitation, thinking, I know what I want to do here. But in the back of their mind, they've probably got what they've been told by the coach and said, well, no, don't do that. Do this kind of pass instead, play like this and so on. And I think that's the problem, because that is always going to be back in your mind. I know what someone's just put there about going rogue in a game. Some players do. And I think the reason why we see another level in the last 10, 15 minutes of a game is because, to me, it just looks like the players are going, oh, screw this. We're just going to go all out and go for this. And that's when we see, you know, a bit of fight like we saw against Arsenal. We saw it a little bit against Villa as well, with a couple of late chances as well. So that's what I think how it looks from the outside as well. I don't know that, but that's what it looks like. It's incredibly frustrating, as you just said there. We're making Turner look like some striker that we've picked up from like a tier 6 side or something that has never played in the WSL before in her life. And it's so frustrating because we know how good I mean, even when we made the subs, you know, she was shifting out on the left, you know, at times and everything else to make way for Williams down the middle. And don't get me wrong, I love Rachel Williams and everything else, but I can't believe we're in Skinner's fourth season. That's still the plan B. If it's going wrong, doesn't matter about anything else. Williams is going to save us, throw her up top. And the reason me personally, I don't know what anyone else thinks, why I'm getting so annoyed is because it's the fourth season, and me and Charlie, you in particular, I think we're saying this last season, when we played against Bristol, for example, at home, and we were really poor in that one. We did manage to win that one. I think we won 2-0 at home at that time. We were poor in that. We were poor in a lot of games last season. And this season, for me, feels exactly the same. We might win a few. We might be poor against Leicester, but we might win. We might win 2-0 or something like that. And I think that's going to be the theme for the season, while we've got this current setup that we've got until a change is made. Because I just think it must play on players' minds is what I'm kind of getting at. That there's all this around. Whether they buy into the current project, I don't know. In terms of what they're being told, it doesn't look like it, because I said it looks like they've never played together before. And a lot of these players have. You know, I want to come to Mark's new team comment in a second, but yeah, it's incredibly infuriating. I think I don't even know what my next question was going to be, but has anyone got any? Barry just mentioned Turner there, and Charlie, I know you wanted to mention a bit about Turner as well, about how isolated she is at the moment. I mean, why do you think that is? Because as you said, we play with two wingers. I agree with you. When I saw that lineup, I was like, that's exactly the team that I've been calling for. Bar Janssen in midfield, I still want that changed. Everyone else was pretty much where I wanted them. But we still couldn't get the ball to Turland, even with the players we want. So that's why, for me, that's when I then throw it back to the touchline and the coaches. Because if you can't get at least chances with those players and that team, not just in this game, because we were the same against Arsenal, the same against Everton, really, for the most part, and Spurs in the first half. What do you think it is, Charlie? Why we're not seeing the best out of Turland? Because she can't get any chance at all at the moment.
Yeah, and it also like, I know Barry was sort of probably trying to be over exaggerating a little bit about Skinner saying don't give her the ball, but there does genuinely appear to be, like, people laugh and have a giggle because Barry's funny, but there genuinely appears to be no intention to get the ball to her. Nothing meaningful from what I can see at all. And he's right again, players working hard off the ball, but her one job seems to be tuck in or just run around like a headless chicken, where areas of the crowd, like a baying mob, are screaming at her because she's not able to press all of Villa's back line on her own. It's the biggest disappointment, that to me, is how she's being treated, I would say, and it feels like a bit like how it's been for Rasmus Holland all season. We've seen it with him, just lump it up to him with 2 6-foot centre backs lurking over him and expect him to somehow make something happen. It's just, this is what makes this show so difficult in some ways, because like you said, you want to talk about, or this is what we're trying to do, but there's no semblance of any, here we go again, there's no semblance of, I've literally got no idea. Is it 9:44, 7:44, 1 minute early? The dog's going to keep barking, viewers. Sorry, for about 90 seconds until the children get in the house. But I've literally no idea what he's trying to do. It appears to not be win football games. Do you remember last season when he said we're not going to put results over performance? Do you remember that? I thought he couldn't get madder than that. Well, last season it was like, just want to win, Mark. That's all we want. And now it's just, and the coaching staff. What coaching staff? You never see him. Is it still the same coaching staff as last season? That fella from Forest under 12s. Is it still him? Like there'll be loads of coaches. If you said, what do you reckon you can do with this squad of 23? And they go, loads. There's literally loads you could do with these. It'd be easy to make them better. Just move the ball quicker. Just pass the ball forwards. Just when attackers are making runs, try and find them. Because even if you don't, it forces Villa to have to think. It makes it less comfortable for them. But there's no intention. I just feel so sorry for Turland. She goes into Chelsea squad, City squad, Arsenal squad even now. She's top scorer in the league comfortably. Because they'll make chances for her.
If Elizabeth Turland was a song, she would currently be all by myself. That one.
Well, you're not wrong. I said when we signed her, she's a proper old-fashioned striker where she just, for me, I just tell her to stay in the opposition box. And I think Truce has put this out. We had 10 touches in the opposition box the whole game. Villa had 27, for context. So what is she supposed to do? And Sean said there about she only had one good goal scoring season. I disagree. The reason Brighton signed her was because she was having good goal scoring for Brighton before she came over. And in the first season for Brighton wasn't awful. I think she scored 7 in the WSL before she had that amazing one last season where she scored 13. So again, it's not awful. Maybe not the heights of last season, but it's still not as bad as what we're seeing now. So I don't know. I mean, Matt, have you got anything to kind of finalise on this Turland conversation? Because I think you mentioned this at the start that we've got this striker in here and we can't get any service to her at all.
Yeah, I think just to sort of add to what Charlie said, really, I think obviously as a forward, you've got 2 options. You either like it into feet or you like it sort of where you can run onto it. Now, something that's not blessed with pace, and that's not necessarily an issue for Turland. If you've not got pace, she wants it into feet. She's not even getting it to feet. It's getting hoofed where to the point she's just doing shuttle runs. She runs forward, she runs backwards without touching the ball. And I think with that, we need to be better. We're talking about midfield as well. That's got to be, if we can't do it, it's got to be coached. How do you get your 2 behind her or your 3 players behind her in and around her? What's the situation when Turland receives the ball? What are you 3 or 4 in behind doing? When you've got the ball as midfielders, where do you want her to go? And that's something you work on your final third play. What are we doing? What's the process? If we come up against a quick defender, what's she going to do? If we come up against a slow defender, what's she going to do? And ultimately, it's your tactics, isn't it? How do you coach it? But it feels like we just, I don't know, we kick it and we think, right, well, she was top scorer last year. Let's go and see if she can beat 4 defenders and let's go and expect this and that. And it's too much. There's no thought behind it other than, right, we'll kick it and you run. And then if a defender messes up, you might score. And if we don't, well, you just keep running up and down and get your steps in. Why don't you? It becomes almost comical. Like, what? There's no thought process behind it. And I think the whole thing needs looking at, whether that's midfield, whether that's your forwards. The whole link-up play is non-existent. And that stops with one person in their team, we'll say, should be, but it doesn't.
Yeah, all interesting points on that one. And speaking of new, and obviously new forward in Elizabeth Turlin, that kind of leads us on to the Marc Skinner quote post-game, where he's talking about everything being new, apparently. The exact quote, for those of you who haven't seen it, but I'm surprised if everyone who's in the chat's probably already seen this quote, but just to frustrate you even more, I'm going to read it again. But he said on Sky Sports after the game, when he got asked, we're still a new team, believe it or not. We've got a brand new midfield, people coming in. We've also got a new forward, lots of different changes again. We're still unbeaten, so there's positives in that, but the first half wasn't good enough. We have to be more aggressive, especially at home. Charlie, let's start with you on this one. I mean, honestly, when I saw that,
I was mad that was all one sentence. It's just nonsense. He's hoping if he just keeps saying fragments of sentences, no one will be able to pick apart the state of that game.
But I mean, I don't even know what the question is, because when I saw that quote, we were talking about this in our group chat earlier on, that like, it's not really a new team, is it really? When you're looking at it on paper, the back line is essentially the same. Fallon was here last year, albeit didn't play as much. You've got midfield, okay. Toon is probably the only one from last season. There's two there. Mallard was here last season, and then obviously Bizet and Turlin. So 3 or 4 players at most. That is the same for every single squad in the league currently that sign players, because that's what happens. You change your squad, going into a new season for the most part. And this summer, I would argue as well, is the best summer we've had, because we retained more players than we ever have done in any other summer. So this is the most, like, the least changed team that he's had going into a season. So I mean, I'm not surprised. I don't know about you, that he said he came out with those comments. But I mean, do you have anything to add on his comments there? And I don't know. I don't even know what the question is, but I have to ask it because that's the quote that's been going around all over on social media for sure.
I'm not surprised that he said it, but because that's the sort of thing, the sort of David Brent type thing that he says. But it's not a brand new team. It's not really. It's the back four. Well, apart from Gabby George, obviously when she got injured, but it's the starting back four from last season. It's a goalkeeper that's been there for a year. It's Lisa Nalsund, who played regularly at the back end last season. It's Ella Toon. It's Melvie Mallard. She's not new. Like, it's just a nonsense. You look at Brighton women, for example. They got in a shed load of new players. Have they got a new manager as well? I don't even know. Like, look how they're performing. And it seems like a weird comparison to make because Villa have been bottom, but you look how they performed. They also had a brand new manager this year. They performed better than we did yesterday. Like, it's your job. Like, if he brought in a load of kids, right? He brought a load of kids in on their first professional contract, fine. But he didn't do that. He brought in Dominique Janssen, who's in probably the best 10 or 15 centre-backs in the world, refuses to play her there, by the way, has played at the top level, like international trophies or not far off, definitely some second places. I can't remember. I'm so annoyed. Like, it's just it's an absolute nonsense. It's just rubbish. Because if, like I said at the start of the show, if that's how he's going to play it whenever there are new players in the side, we are perpetually going to be in the cycle of new players. We're not going to perform very well for a while. I can't bear it. No other manager in the WSL says that. Not a one says, oh, we've got this luxury of getting 5 or 6 really good players in this summer. We're not going to play so well for a while because they're new to the team. That's your job. We're a third of the way into the season, and you're telling me you can't get a tune out of those international footballers. It's rubbish. And it's lowering. It's trying to lower the bar of expectation. It's lowering the standard. And good God, I hope the players aren't buying into that. We'll lower the standard and say you're not good enough to play at the level that I want you to play at.
It's interesting you say that about the bar, because he mentioned that in his pre-match. I can't remember whether it was for Villa or whether it was for Arsenal, where he said we were above the bar or above where he thought we should be, or something like that. I don't know what the exact quote was.
Well, and the thing is, he's not pressed on it. Where does he think we should be? Because if it's not 4th place, that is unthinkable. That is unthinkable that as a Manchester United manager he can say that. That is unthinkable to me. And it doesn't matter whether it's a team that's been around for 100 years, 6 years, 2 years, doesn't matter. You don't say that. Do you remember David Moyes coming out and saying, oh, it's our dream to be where Liverpool are? That was him done. He was done then when he said that. It should be the same here. It's just the mentality is non-existent. And I feel like with our coaching setup at the moment, the rate at which the standard of female football athletes is improving is not being matched by the calibre of coaching that we have at our football club. That's what I will say.
No, I think you make a good point actually in terms from the coaching front. I want to come back to that because it's going to be one of my kind of final questions before we focus on a couple of individual players. The player of the match poll's been running, by the way, in the chat. So if you want to get your votes on that, I can't even remember who I put on. I know Gary, George, and Fallon's definitely on there. I can't remember the two others. Who did I put on? Jason Letitia, because I literally went off FootMob in terms of ratings on that one. But Gabby and Fallon are way out ahead on that poll. So it's definitely a two-horse race between those two. But don't let that sway you. Vote for who you want. You can get your votes and we'll come back to that at the end of the show, which could be in a while, to be fair, because we've got a couple of questions. This could be quite a long... Oh, well, I say that. Barry's got another show at 8:30, but we might be still going. Who knows? So, Barry, I'll welcome to you next for this quick, because I know this is the one that really wound you up. The new team comment and new midfield and new everything. But Charlie's right, isn't she? When you talk about it like that, that means we're going to be... That's basically just saying, oh, we're going to be poor for the start of every season because we're going to sign players and we're just going to have to accept that we're never ever going to start well, right?
CAW, Charlie's always right. That's a very important point to remember. And that's a what. Listen, those are the cries of a man desperately scraping a barrel. If you hark here, you can actually hear it now. It is, without question, the most ridiculous thing I have heard said in a press conference since Cantona came out with his one about the trawler and the seagulls. But at least that made sense if you sat and thought about it. I can't understand on what planet Marc Skinner has come out to say this and is feeling like this was a sensible thing to do. Let's just run it through, shall we? Because there's three players there who are brand new to this football club. Number one, you've got Fallon tullis-joyce. I refuse to accept that she is... I can't believe I've done that, John. You're right. It should be Carr, shouldn't it? Unless, of course, I'm talking about...
I was thinking that when you said it. I was like, I'm not going to correct you. I'll let you just go with it.
What's brilliant?
I thought you were just being funny.
Of course I was being funny. Yes, there'd be nothing else for that one. That's my karma. That's what that is, Charlie, for sending you that message about the wrong there. So, yeah, very annoying. Anyway, Fallon tullis-joyce was here at the beginning of last season. She should have been starting from the beginning of last season. We chose not to do that. We chose to play Mary Earps because she's the best goalkeeper in the world, even though she didn't want to commit her future to Manchester United. But we didn't want to do that because that was a decision that Marc Skinner made. So he can... I nearly swore there. He can do one on that one. Jade Riviere, not a new player. She's been here for quite a while as well. Yes, she was injured, but she's has to listen to all of your waffle, sunshine. She can't have that one either. Gabby George, as if it's not bad enough you've had your ACL done. She's had to listen to all your waffle and all. So I'm not having that one. Millie Turner and May Letitia are two people who were there before Marc Skinner and will be there after Marc Skinner. Grace Clinton, not new. This is the player that I saw one pre-season friendly and said, oh, she's going to be a tip-top player. She is. And instead, we farmed her off to the Championship and then we sent her over to Spurs. That's a Marc Skinner decision. Not having it. Janssen, new player. You can have that one. But you're playing her in the wrong position, you absolute melt. Ella Toon is not a new player. She has literally been there since the start. But you keep playing her in the wrong position, you absolute melt. Elizabeth Turland, being played in the right position, but you're not giving her the ball. Izzy Wizzy, let's get busy, is in the right position now, but you played her at right back before that. And Melvin Mallard was also in the right position. So let me be clear, if that is a new football team, then you are basically, it's a new football team in the same way that Trigger's bloody broom was a new broom on Only Fools and Horses. Oh, yeah, it's had 3 new sticks and 7 new heads. It's not the new broom then, is it? It's a new broom. It's not the same one. You silly, silly, silly sods. Let me be clear. Because on this one, and I've been very good at not responding to this, Twalumba, if there is a person on these channels who should not be sitting there having a go at the patience that I have got, sir, it's you. It's you. Your negativity abounds. And I let it go because it's all about be heard and all that sort of stuff. It was absolutely right for me, and I will maintain it, that he won the FA Cup, the first trophy that we've had that isn't the Championship. So, yeah, he did deserve the chance to work with his team. Unfortunately, he is doing that work with his team, and sadly, it is the most incompetent piece of work that I have watched since the last time I saw Connor try to eat a burger. It's just not acceptable. Now, I did want to just touch on this slightly because there's a bit of work going into that. Did you know that to get your coaching degree or your coaching badges abroad might cost you about $2,000? If you want to get the top quality coaching badges over here, it's going to set you back £10,000-15,000. So who can afford that? So they're going off, they're getting their badges. They're not spending any time at St. George's Park doing any work there to actually earn their badges. So the people that we're getting in that are English, effectively, no, a lot of them aren't at the level that they need to be at. So am I frustrated? Yes, I'm frustrated, but it is really, really winding me up because what I will never accept is just excuses. You don't have the right, as the manager of Manchester United Football Club, to step out of here and just be offering these type of lame-ass excuses. They are absolutely pathetic. Grow up, grow a pair, take some responsibility, and actually manage the team. You have got one of the best teams out there. I did not sit there and say, we're going to win the league because we've got a rubbish football team. That is a class collection of players. And you are making them look like they are playing at tier 9. I don't even know if there is a tier 9. You're making them look. It's a good job I got a new pack. Do it once.
Do you know what? I'm glad you did that, because if you weren't going to go off on a rant, it would have been me, and I'm so tired. So I'm glad that that you did it rather than me. But I don't know what's it. Matt, follow that on Marc Skinner's comments.
Oh, how do you top that? Do you know what? Sorry, he's mentioned coaching courses. Why don't I just go there? Problem is, we have in England with coaching courses, it teaches you how to pass the qualification, not actually how to coach. And that sounds ludicrous saying that, but it's like when you do your driving test. Here's an example to compare it. We'll use an analogy, Barry, because I know you'll approve. You do your driving lessons, you do everything they tell you to do in order to pass. Once you pass and you've no instructor, it all goes out the window. See, look at that, Barry. He's nodding in agreement. Linking in the coaching aspect, right? You're on your badges, you taught, do this, do that, do this, do that. If you go against it, you get pulled on it and you get asked why. You then explain the why and you get told, no, you are wrong. Now, for me, coaching's an open book. Right and wrong could happen, could not happen. But the way you do it, you might have a reason behind it. Now, yeah, I don't know. Let's chuck it back to Skinner. Has he been in a coaching course? Clearly, yes, to get a badge. So he's ticked the box. Has that taught him how to coach? Clearly not. So I don't know. Where do we go? Where do we go to get this show back on track? I don't even know that. So I'm glad we've got you, Connor. But I think, yeah, I don't even know where I'm going with this. Just thought I'd copy Barry, chuck out an analogy, following where he said, and here we are. But yeah, there's a lot of non-coaching happening. Sitting watching a DVD back is not coaching. And I know I put in our little private chat before, I would love with my team to have a video analysis and be able to say, look at this, look at that. But You know, at the end of the day, sign of a good coach is you identify what's going wrong, you correct it, you don't stick on a DVD and say, well, don't kick it forward to Turland, don't have a running up and down. Well, that's great. I could go and get one of my school kids to say, what do we do right and wrong here? You know, how do we do it? And it's the problem solving. How do we do it? Where we're going wrong? What do we change in the game? What do we need to do next game? Who's doing what wrong? This is what I want. And you need to tell players, what do you want from them? What should you be doing? And it's just, it's not happening, is it? So I'm going to shut up now and cool down.
I'm going to throw another question.
Brilliant advert for Lint, that, isn't it? I mean, I know it took 2, but I'm so calm and cuddly again now.
There are other chocolate brands available. I think it's important.
Not as good as this one. Sorry, Cadbury. Sorry, Nestle. You feel absolutely mullered.
But yeah, I think, like I said, it's just frustrating all round. And I think, like I said, yesterday was, and this kind of leads me on to my question that I am going to ask, a couple of the positive players in just a second. But my final, I guess, question on Skinner for the moment, because Charlie, I'll come to you and Matt first. Because obviously you were both in the ground yesterday. I think that is the first, and I think Michael asked this earlier about maybe not hearing it on TV. In the ground, that felt like to me that the match-going support had changed to, and I always look at the men's side over the years because the men's side have changed managers so many times in the last kind of decade or so that when you lose the match-going fans, usually it's not far away from a managerial change. I'm not suggesting that that's what we're close to. This is purely my speculation at the moment. But yesterday really did felt like the match-going fans, for the most part, had flipped, particularly at halftime, at full-time. You could feel it. I've never seen LSV empty so fast in my life. And some people said, it's because it's a late kickoff. I've seen later kickoffs than that, and there's a lot more people that stay behind. And yeah, you could say you don't stand around the pitch anymore. It doesn't matter. It emptied so fast, long before full time, and even at full time, the players wouldn't. That's why I tweeted it. They walked around. There was nobody there. Everyone had gone by that point because I think everyone was just so frustrated. You could feel it. I think Charlie, you said earlier, the atmosphere in the ground was really getting angry. You could feel it amongst whoever you were stood by. So my question really is, obviously, is on the atmosphere as well, but also where does this leave Marc Skinner now? Because as I said earlier, for me, when you lose the match going support. Not all of them. I'm sure there'll be people that support regardless until the very end, until a change is made. But where do you think that leaves him now? We've got 3 games in the international break: Leicester, Everton in the Cup, and then Chelsea. Yeah, what's your thoughts on all of that one?
I think you need to give the crowd something to cheer about, don't you? I think for long periods of the game, there was support. There was positive support from the crowd because you could hear it. You could hear chants of United from the South Stand, which is all over the other side of the pitch from us, from the East Stand as well. So the crowd doing their bit for long periods of time. But when there's just the performance, there was just a complete lack of anything, of any energy in the performance. There was nothing positive to latch onto. And you need that, don't you? You need something positive to latch onto. So a burst into the box, a player taking on the opposition. Like Roy Keane says, if you're struggling, just kick somebody. Just smash through somebody. Give the crowd something to cheer about. Although, to be fair, Gabby George, I would say once or twice, did provide that. Putting her knee through the ringer, asking her to do 3 or 4 last-ditch tackles, just lunacy. She was probably the only player that gave the crowd something to cheer about regularly throughout the game. But apart from that, there was nothing to cheer for. There was an announcement about it being a community stadium, so obviously there was some poor language. But not necessarily from me. I will neither confirm nor deny whether I contributed to that. Matt, don't speak. But it was just really difficult. Even like my 6-year-old daughter loves it, loves coming to watch pretty much every week now. She's even got the wherewithal to say, why have we never got the ball here? I thought we were meant to be better than these. Why are we not touching the ball? And she's thinking that, watching them as a 6-year-old. There was nothing for the crowd to latch onto, and it did get negative. I think sometimes there is a place for it. I think the coaching staff and the players need to know that the crowd sometimes need more. And if these sorts of performances continue, it's something they're going to have to learn to deal with, or something needs to change. I think you could argue it shows an element of investment, doesn't it? The crowd willing the team to do something to put on a performance, and they just weren't. But yeah, it was, I think I said before backstage, it was poor, not in the sense of lack of involvement from the crowd, because there was a lot of noise being made and a lot of willing the players on, but it was, you could feel the negative energy. And I think it's all well and good to say, oh, the crowd just needs to be positive, or it's easy to say, but when you're in there watching that, and you've been watching that regularly, it's massively frustrating. And the biggest frustration for me is, I've said, I'm not saying we should be turning Chelsea over 5-0. I'm not saying that at all. But we have, I think, a brilliant squad of players. Almost every other manager in the league at the start of the season almost will be looking at that and saying, we need to be worried here. These could do something really good this season. But there was nothing. And that adds to the frustration for me. Barry said, we've got the best set of players we've ever had. We've got 2 brilliant players pretty much in every position. Not in every position, but almost. And just producing nothing to cheer about.
And I think that's the thing. And Matt, I'll throw it over to you, because I guess obviously as someone who's been there since the very, very start, as you mentioned earlier on, going home and away in Europe and all these kinds of things that you've been following the team. Is that how it came across to you yesterday, that the fan base had turned in terms of that frustration in the crowd? Because it happens during the game, you give the ball away, you hear a collective like a bit of a groan. But yesterday it was pure anger. Like, even where I stand a little bit off to the side, and there was kids around me getting really angry and like shouting stuff. I'm talking like young teenagers here and everything else, getting really annoyed around. Even in West stands that I could see to my right were getting annoyed as well, and really kind of shouting stuff and seeing that frustration. Is that kind of how you see it as well? And my second question is, ask Charlie, where do you think that leaves Skinner now in terms of his position moving forward?
Yeah, I think it was definitely frustration. I think it was evidently noticeable. I mean, I was in the north stand, behind the goal standing, at half time with all the boos. I think you could see just people's reactions. Like you say, we understand as fans that you may give the ball away, you may have a bit of a wobbly game. That's fine. That's not a problem. Players are human. But I think now people have got to the point where they're more than fed up. Like, it's getting to the stage now where it might be getting silly in terms of people's reactions. And that's not to say that people are wrong. They're 100% right to feel frustrated, to be annoyed, maybe occasionally swear. It might happen, that's the frustration that boils out of people. But I just think, there was points yesterday where people, like I say, obviously the boos was one thing at halftime, full time. People were sitting down with their head in the hands in front of me at one point, thinking like, why are we bothering? And I think somebody to the left of me turned around and they said, we don't even want to watch. Like, they wanted to go. They stayed out of loyalty to the team, but they had no motivation to be there. There was nothing to be cheered. There was nothing good about it. I want to use the word toxic, because I think that is the only way that it gets the point across for maybe those that potentially weren't aware of it or weren't there. It's deflating to talk about, let alone to watch. I just think, like you said, where do you go from here as a manager? There's only one way, and that's not staying at the football club any longer. Plenty of people tonight have been vocal in the comments about that. But as a manager now, you've got to be, I don't know. If I was him, I'd be looking over my shoulder and I'd be seriously considering now where we go. Whether he's got the guts to walk away, I doubt very much, because I think in his own mind, listening to his interviews, throwing players under the bus, his own ego, that won't happen. So now it's on the board. What are we, like I said before, what are we looking to achieve out of the season? Where are we going? We've all talked about the talent. We know what we've got. We've not got the right leaders in place. We look lost on the field. We probably look lost from the sides. I think somebody mentioned it before. I can't think if it was one of you three or somebody in the comments about the rest of the coaching staff just sat down. Like, who's calling the shots? And I hate dragging up the past, but at least when we had Martin Ho, we had some sense of direction, encouragement, some sense of somebody that knows what they're doing. We seem to have got absolutely nothing. We're supposed to have, is it Carl Green, the assistant, or somebody? No, nobody even knows who he is. Like, a few years ago, you could list all the staff and you knew, yeah, this guy does this, he does that, physio does this player and this staff member does this. Nobody's got a clue. Charlie mentioned this guy from Forest before. Nobody even knows his name, because what genuinely, on a match day, what do? You might see him Wilcock bouncing up and down a few times. Skinner's doing his seal impression clapping on the sides, and that's what we get. And we don't get excited. We have nothing to shout about and get excited about. I'm sorry. It had to be said, Connor, because I can't.
A proper tickle with that.
You should be motivating, though. And, we can all, if you sat in the West End, you can hear it. But I don't hear a decent instruction come out of his mouth. I just see him clapping and shouting, go on. Like, we can do that as fans. It doesn't take a UEFA Pro licensed coach and 15 grand and a badge to be able to do that. It baffles me. So where he goes from here, I don't know. I just, do you know what? I questioned, a few people said, we've won the FA Cup, let's keep him. I questioned why we kept him. I genuinely thought he was done in summer, and I hoped he was done. And yeah, I think it's only getting worse now. There doesn't seem to be any progression at all. And the whole point is we progress year on year, and it feels like we got away with it last year because we won a cup. But this year now, I think stuff is really hitting the fan, to put it politely, and it's not going to end well. And it's the players as well I feel sorry for, because at the end of the day, they really shouldn't feel this negativity as much as they probably do. But a lot of it is mainly, from what I can gather, aimed at the manager and not the players. So yeah, it's not going to end well.
No, and I think that's it. 'Cause it's not even the result. When I put the tweet out earlier, I think some people misunderstood what I meant by about the result. I meant the performance as a whole when I put that, because we drew, whatever, it is what it is, but it's the performance that's more worrying than just drawing that one. JJ, you are right, it was before the FA Cup final that he was extended, but we all said at the time, the fact is a 1+1, that doesn't fill you with massive confidence. So they had full belief in him either. I've said all summer that this season was basically a trial, I think, to see how we would get on with a very good squad, new structure above and everything else. And the evidence we've seen so far, for me, this just is not going to work. And my worry would be the further we get on into the season, we're on exactly the same points as we were this time last year, 6 games in, and scored about 5 or 6 goals less than we did. Every stat metric, as I said to these guys before, is down. Average possession per game, accurate passes per game, shots per game, everything is down. The only thing that is up is save percentage. So Fallon, well done to you, because you're the only one that's got an up metric from last season. But Mary, same 2 questions to yourself then, really, in terms of, I said, where does this leave him now? Because to me, this feels more like a when now than an if. If results, well, not even results, if performances carry on like this, I mentioned the games that we've got this month. Leicester are a bit hit and miss. Don't know what you're going to get from Leicester this season. We've got them next. Everton in the Cup. We're usually pretty good against Everton, so I'm not worried about that. But then Chelsea, and that's what me and you were talking about backstage. If that goes as bad as it did last season, I'm talking last game of the season bad, could you see there be any change during the international window? Do you think that would maybe be the right time if you're going to make a change? Because then you've got 2 weeks to sort that. What's your kind of thoughts in terms of where this leaves him? Because he would argue, as he has done, as Matt says, he's pretty stubborn, that we're unbeaten, it's a new team and all this kind of thing. But do you think that fan opinion, I guess, will maybe just take over in the end here?
I am not going to go back over the new team bit that you just mentioned there, because I feel like that was epic enough. I am going to apologise because I called him a melt, and that went down the personal route, and I shouldn't have done that. That's everything I hate about people on the fan cams, so I'm going to throw that out there. But his decision making is absolutely atrocious, and that's what's annoying me. So where does it leave Marc Skinner? The frustrating part about all of this is that I will still support him. I will still, because this is Manchester United, and I take the word, I don't turn around to people and say I'm a Man United fan. I say I'm a Man United supporter. What that means is I will support the club until my dying breath, whoever's managing it and whoever's playing, because it's my club. I love it. It's in my blood. It's as much to me as members of my family. It's vital. And I can't imagine a world without Manchester United in it. So, yeah, I am going to keep supporting him. And I do hope, even now, despite the fact that I've just literally verbally eviscerated him, I still hope that he comes back and does really well. I still want him to go in the league. We are still unbeaten. We do, I know that people are bandying that around with sarcasm, but we are. We could have lost that game. And if we had, that would have been terrible. So, there is a little bit of a of a positive spin in there, which is that despite the fact we were absolutely walloped, we didn't concede. And that is very much down to the attitude and ability of the players that were defending the goal more than any super duper tactical nous and expertise. Now, equally, everything has a tipping point. Everything does. And like, it does get me a bit emotional when I sit and read the things that go on in the chat, and I hear people, or rather see people writing things like, it's bad if Barry's getting frustrated, it's if Barry's gone, that's it. But I'm also pleased because that is me. I will support until the very, very end. But even with that, it's so difficult. Katie Zellum, you can sit here and talk to me about how she's not a decent midfielder. She never should have been playing. But I'll tell you something, our linkage between defence and attack would have been way better if she'd have been playing yesterday. Simple. Absolute truth. Mind you, it also probably would have been a little bit better had we picked one or two other players that might have had the opportunity to play there. It's frustrating. Can I see him going? I absolutely can. And the way in which the world is going at the moment, it's not going to take long. It's not, because, like you said, you can't lose the match going fans. We always say that on the men's channel. That's why we have people like Andrew will come onto the channel as well, not just for their superb personality and excellent points of view, but because they give us that insight into what's going on in Old Trafford. What can you hear? And I think for me, this is a big thing. If the match going fans, which, by the way, the vast majority of people that go to LSV aren't going to start booing. They aren't going to start going absolutely mad unless it is absolutely turgid. And it sounds like that's starting to happen. So, yeah, can I see him going? I absolutely can. But for me, it will happen if it's going to be a lot of things. Will he lose the dressing room? Like I said, if you don't start communicating and you don't start showing a bit of love to your players, then yeah, you're going to lose those people in the dressing room. They would become the old bad apples in the dressing room, which in other words is often another word that's used for, well, actually, we've just had enough of your madness sometimes. So, listen, I think he's got to be careful. I still want him to do well. I do, But you can't be 4 years into a project and start talking about a new team. Like, it's a new team that you've built. What are you doing? So yeah, I can see him going. I think the nicest and the best way I can put it is that I'm not going to sit here and call for him to go, but I've got a bottle of Baileys in the fridge for when he does.
Yeah, I think what you just said there about a tipping point, I said to a few people privately, and I didn't know whether I was going to say this because I'm conscious of trying to remain somewhat neutral as a host in some capacities, but I think the best way I can put it for me, yesterday was my last straw. I had many straws, yet yesterday was the last one. I think for me, that was the full tipping point. I think when you're talking about losing the players and things like that, I think some potentially have already gone. It wouldn't be a surprise. Just looking at the way we're playing and looking at how all over the place, and there's always separate huddles. We spoke about this last season. There's always, the coaching huddle. That's why I tweeted it earlier. I've never seen that ever at a game before, where the coaches all go separately in a huddle. They did the main one where they all get together, which is the photo everyone sees after every game. And then the coaches all went together. I've never seen that before after a United game. So it may have happened before. I just haven't seen it. So that surprised
me. The boos before or after the huddle?
Oh, before, long before. It was as soon as the full-time whistle went.
Again, in fairness, that very well could have been him trying to be a man manager and putting them all together and saying, look, they might be a bit upset, but I still believe in you guys. Yeah, what weight that'll carry, I don't know, but I think that bit I can at least applaud, that he's trying to protect his staff, if that's what he was doing.
But he,
He
but
could
he,
well have been going, "Whoa, that was brilliant, well done." Don't listen to them and what they're talking about.
he doesn't protect his players, though. He doesn't come out and protect his players from the Bayern mobs. He happily.
I never applauded that, did I?
I know, but that I think that makes it worse. I think.
Yeah.
If what he was doing was saying we did as well as we could, and then he comes out and he throws the players under the bus.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, so for me personally, I think, I don't know whether I said this on here or whether I said this backstage. I think now it's probably a when than an if, potentially. I think we'll see. I mean, to be fair, as we're sat here now, we go and win the next 3 and beat Chelsea away. We were having a different conversation going into the international break. Just the way we're playing, to be honest, I'm not even confident about beating Leicester, let alone Chelsea. So I think that's where we're at now for me. And we see where we go when we just take each game as it comes now, because I've got no idea what United team to expect week by week. So yeah, it's frustrating because I'm the same as you, Barry. I want the teams to do well, but ultimately at the moment I think I've just lost all patience, and I think just watching the team for me it's just not good enough. Barry, I think you've got to shoot off, haven't you? So do you want to give us your player of the match and kind of like a final thought before you quickly hop off?
Fallon Tullis-Joyce, would have conceded a lot more over the course of the season, not just there. So yeah, she was my choice for player of the match, or at least at the very least for the final 108 minutes of the match. Like I say, that little moment a couple of minutes in genuinely made me lose quite a lot of my senses. I did nearly fall off the sofa. Really, anything else I got to say? No, not really, other than to just point out again, like I say, people do lose their patience. It just comes down to love. We love this football club. It's ours. The best advert I ever saw was when they were bringing out the Chevrolet Manchester United shirt, and you've got them all singing "Glory, Glory, Man United." And Wayne Rooney stops by saying, "This shirt was yours. It always has been, and it always will be." And it's just that remembrance that the fans are the lifeblood of your football team. And while some of the fans will always make you feel questioned and have opinions, they're still the fans, and ultimately you've got to show them a bit of respect. And I would implore Mark, if he's listened to all of this and he's feeling a little bit upset, I just implore you to think a little bit about not insulting our intelligence, because we'll forgive a lot, but not that. Other than that, I'm going over to WOFO. Do come and join me. It's going to be a much better conversation because there's going to be nothing about the WSL in that respect. So it'll be lovely. So do come and join us once you finish with these guys. But as ever, absolute pleasure. And if you're into watching, I'll be well up for a sponsorship. Absolutely no problem. Just get in touch. You've got some excellent flavours. I'll be all over that. So yeah, brilliant. But thank you. Much appreciated. Take care, everybody. And I will see you anon.
See you later, Byron. But yeah, I think that's bang on. There's just a couple of quick comments I want to get to. Then we'll come to player of the match and kind of round this conversation off. Just very quickly, because there was this question about, is that a City shirt behind you? I'm assuming you're referring to that one. No, but it ties into what Sean said there about the FCAs, which is the football content. And most people who don't know, that is in 10 days' time. They are my shirts I've been trying on for said events. So they're hung up at the moment, as well as the jacket and everything else that's currently in there. So that's why they're hung up there. So it's not a City shirt. It's what I'll potentially be wearing in 10 days' time for that event. So that's what that is, in answer to that question. But yeah, as I said, I've just lost my current patience with it. And, Emily's talking there about being on thin ice if you lose to Leicester. I mean, lose to Leicester, I don't know what that atmosphere is going to be like in that away end, but that's going to be horrendous if we lose down there. But there we go. Right, In fact, no, we will come to, I guess, the player of the match bit and just kind of round this off just a little bit because we've been going for an hour and 25 minutes here. Two players that are on the poll, Gabby George and Fallon Tullis-Joyce, they were the kind of two names that we put forward as kind of like as shoo-ins for player of the match for this one. Charlie, Gabby in particular, because we spoke about Fallon a lot over the last few weeks, and Fallon in our interview, actually, for anyone who's not seen it, we tweeted a little clip of it earlier. She almost grabs the mic off Ben, who's asking the questions, going, and props to Gabby. She saved me so many times today. What have you made of her this season, but also in this game? Because obviously coming back from an ACL injury, it's obviously tough for these players to come back and do that. But for me, she's come back and been very solid on that left-hand side, and another great performance, I think, yesterday.
Yeah, I think defensively she's been faultless. I think she's had to be. There were 3 or 4 times in the game, particularly in the second half, when Villa was shooting our way towards the terrace, where she had to time the challenge perfectly because she was having to make those challenges on the ground in the box, so it had to be perfect. I also think she dealt with a lot of situations where she was passed the ball under quite a lot of pressure. So she was given the ball by the centre-back or the goalkeeper and was being closed down very quickly by the Villa forwards and dealt with that really well. I think she's having to do too many last-ditch tackles for someone who's not long been back from a second ACL injury. So if they could alleviate some of that pressure on her, that would be good. But yeah, I think her performance yesterday was probably, like I said earlier, the only one for me personally that gave me something to cheer about, because she showed a little bit of that grit and determination that was missing from elsewhere.
Yeah, Matt, just your thoughts on Gabby as well. As people are saying in the chat here, John's put there about, she's keep this form up. She's England's number 3. Highland put it there about being England's potential left back as well. If she keeps this kind of form up, do you think that's kind of the route she's going at with the form she's on and the performance yesterday?
Absolutely, yeah. I think obviously if we analyse not just yesterday, but since she's been back, I think it's been, slow and steady and consistent from her. I don't recall too many times where I've thought, oh my days, like what's she doing? I think considering I don't know if people sometimes or fans in general fully understand the nature of coming back from an ACL, the difficulties facing it, and we've had that many ACLs. We've seen players come back and struggle to find the form. And I think, Gabby's sort of come back, like I say, not really put a foot wrong. A couple of last-ditch challenges yesterday. Fantastic. No fault of her own. Obviously, she's been having to cover and make those challenges. And I think, it's great to see her back. I think it was unfortunate. I remember, that game against Everton, I think wasn't even long from what I recall in the game. First half, first 10, 20 minutes potentially. That she went off, and I think it was frustrating because last year when she came in, she started off at a very good level, looked very comfortable, and slowly had to build not only performance levels but a confidence as well. And sometimes it's easy when you get an injury like that to be phased confidence-wise, especially as a defender, because I think you're having to put your body on the line, you're having to go through those tackles and those knocks more than, say, maybe another player, depending on the type of player you are. But, I think, it's going to be interesting now to see what she does for the rest of the season. And especially, obviously, as we know, Hannah Blundell is not going to feature this year. That left-back spot is obviously Gabby's for now at United. Whether that changes, obviously, with Anna coming back, who knows? But I think, it's been good for her. And, there's a couple of comments saying about, can she be called up for England? Why not? I think a few more consistent performances and hopefully, we can get to see the best of Gabby George, what we had at the start of last year.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed, because we've got some good competition for that left back now as well, which is something we've not had in previous seasons as well. Just very quickly before I end the poll and kind of looked around the show off, Ema's put here about it. Does anyone know why this was overturned? I've genuinely never seen anything like it in my life. When we had a free kick and then all of a sudden it just changed.
He gave the rightly to us, then the Villa player got a little bit injured. There was like a couple of minutes where nothing happened, and then when the game restarted, she just gave them the free kick. Like, the Villa goalkeeper had to be told 3 times take the free kick because she didn't think it was theirs.
She was painful yesterday. I don't even want to rag on the ref because the performance was dire, but my God, there was a point where we had the ball in possession. It ended up a drop ball, and it was given to Villa when we were in possession. I'm like, it was She looked like she'd just come out of college, that ref, and the lino on one side was just equally as bad. It was painful. But anyway.
I think it got referenced in the chat earlier on. It's like we were that bad, we didn't even mention the ref on
We
this
didn't
show
even
because of
focus
that
on the ref.
reason, because
No,
we were even worse.
We're going to mention her. She was absolutely dire, and I don't know where she came from, but she needs to go back.
Yeah, it was pretty poor officiating. And I said that's not taking, and that's certainly not an excuse for our own performance, because even if the ref was the best ref in the world that gave us everything, we still probably wouldn't have scored anyway. So yeah, but the official was definitely didn't have a good game, that's for sure. A couple of people saying she previously played for Liverpool. That might explain a few things. The match did end a bit abruptly as well. I'm pretty sure Rachel Williams was about to hit a shot and the ref blew the whistle. But to be fair, I was saying to the people around me, there was about 3 minutes added on over the 10 minutes anyway. I don't quite know where all that time came from. But there we go. Anyway, right, player of the match for both of you. Who would you have gone for and why? And I'll quickly end this poll in the chat while I come to you, Charlie, first on that one.
Voted for Gabby for all of the reasons that I already stated earlier. The one bright spark in an otherwise very dour evening of football.
Matt, would you agree with that one?
I agree with it, yeah, but I'm going to go Fallon. I think, listen, I've obviously just briefly touched on Gabby before, but I think, there's a couple of times when, we obviously played ourselves into trouble and, without going all Roy Keane and saying, it's a job she's expected to make saves, there has been times when she has bailed us out in particular. And I think yesterday, again, pretty solid throughout the game, did a job. So, yeah, I think it's hard. That's how bad we were. It's hard to pick a player of the match. But, yeah, I'm sticking with Fallon for that one.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. As I said earlier, like our save percentage this season has gone up from 66 to 90 currently. So it's a lot higher than what it was last season. So we may not be scoring and the performances may be dire at the moment. However, the back line, I think, and Fallon have been pretty solid so far. We just need to improve at the other end and start getting the ball further forward and try and control some of these games. That's for sure. And it was a spectacular save, that one. She tipped over the bar. It was a double save as well. I didn't realize she got to the first one. She's the one that stops the cross in the first place. And obviously gets up to make the second one. So yeah, she's been brilliant on that one. So I would have gone for Fallon, but I've gone for Fallon twice already this season. So I'm going to give it to Gabby just because I've not had the chance to do that this season yet. But votes in the chat. So Gabby did win it on 53%, Fallon on 40%. These percentages don't add up. It throws me off because these percentages don't add up to 100. So it bugs me as to who they. Yeah, they're rounded, but I don't know which way they're rounded. So I'm just going to read them out as it comes through to me anyway. Gabby on 53, Fallon 40, Mayor on 3, and Jason 2. But yeah, as I said, those two are pretty much standouts as we were expecting. Right, we'll look to wrap it up there because we've been going for 90 minutes or so, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation rumbling on throughout the week as we go on. Matt, is there anything you want to shout out while you're on here? Is there anything you're up to these days, apart from your Twitter on screen there?
Do you know what? No, I'm busy coaching myself, learning. No, it's not a dig. No, genuinely, no. Genuinely not a dig. Yeah, no, just busy coaching. Just took charge of a team. Started this calendar year. It's going all right. So yeah, I'm just keeping myself busy. I feel like I've not got much time for like Twitter and things like that now. I still obviously go for the odd read and that and interact, but yeah, just literally busy now, going through the motions, trying to get my team promoted, trying to keep going in the cups as we are. So yeah, that's how it is these days.
So we can keep an eye on all that on Matt's Twitter there, which is
of course you can have a nosy. Why not?
And I obviously appreciate everyone in the comments tonight, saying it's a much easier, much better 90 minutes than
more productive 90 minutes
than yesterday, absolutely. But yeah, I knew this show was going to be a bit more as it has been. You're not going to get positivity all the time from us because you just can't. When you're seeing what we're seeing at the moment, it's going to be exactly that. But hopefully we've dissected the game and our thoughts and the fan opinions as we've been seeing them online in the last 24 hours. But yeah, as I said, it is what it is. Make sure you're liking this video and subscribing if you haven't already. As Barry said earlier, obviously make sure you look after yourselves. I know he's kind of half joking about it a little bit at the start, but obviously I know that it riles people up at the moment, and I know that it can get a little bit too much for some people and everything else. What I would say, if it does get you to that, just switch off from it. It's really not worth it. Football ruining your weeks and your days and things like that. So hopefully we've helped a little bit on this channel. We'll obviously have a show previewing Leicester later on in the week. Potentially another one if obviously anything happens this week. We'll go live again. Or if there's appetite for another type of show, we'll do another type of fan discussion-y type show. It's because it's getting to the point where it's so long now that it doesn't stick up as much. So it's getting cut on Wednesday. So
it's the stress. That's what it is, John. The stress of the football's blowing it backwards. Either that or it was you rushed to drive home and the wind just... to be fair. What was it? 3 hours and got home at 3 a.m. or something. Really, mate.
Exactly. So maybe it's that, but who knows? So yes. So make sure you're all looking after yourselves. Like I said, we'll be back and hopefully we'll be talking about a win come next Monday. But there we go. Anyway, make sure you're liking this video and subscribing if you haven't already. Follow us on all the socials. All for United WFC on everything. Have a good week all, and we'll see you guys in the next one.